In this kit, we have provided you the different tools because every single one of these different dabber sticks or brushes and things like that, I'm going to use for different things. If I see certain different things, I may use a different tool. Okay, so let's start out with something simple. Right here on the lip. See those chips? Now, for things on ridges and lips and things like that, as you see here, I would typically go with a dabber stick. Okay? Dabber sticks are very convenient. You use the tip right there. Okay? And we can dab in. And let me show you how easy this is. Once we have dabbed in, we're going to just do a quick touch and release. Gone. We're going to go next to it, quick touch and release. Okay? Now what I'm going to want to do is look at this lip, because all things on that edge for the sponge will not get. Okay? So another one right there. Maybe a little touch right there. Okay? Now, let me show you another technique. If you are doing something very, very small, this dabber stick has a very thick, foamy tip. Now this is going to hold a lot of paint. Sometimes I don't want that much paint because it's going to flow out and it's going to make bubbles on top. So here's a trick. We're going to take this tip, okay, and we're going to tear that tip off, which creates a basic tip. For example, let's look at this one right here. Now, if I were to do that dabber stick and I were to put that on top of that, that would flow out and that would create a bubble topped. It's just putting too much paint on. I just want to get a tiny, tiny little bit right in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit out, just enough. That is less than a drop. And I'm going to surgically start in the center and work it out. Okay, so this is a way to control, just like any tool in here, is we want to fill a cup to the rim. I don't want to overfill it, it'll flow over. I don't want to underfill it because then you'll see the dip. This is a way that I can control a very small piece and hit surgically a nice hit, okay? So, let's go on another example. If we're going to use a fine line brush, we will open up our fine line brush kit here. We're going to open this up. And take one out. Now these are disposable. So if I'm going through for these, we'll take that tip off. As you can see, it's very fine line. These are for what we call cat scratches. Cat scratches are very, very fine lines that the sponge did not fill and things like that. So I've got another one right over here that I'd like to show you an example of. So, on this tiny little scratch, sometimes the paint sponging through the first stages are not going to fill those. So what I like to do is get a little bit on the tip, brace your hand, and nice and easily brush over the top. Give a little more. As you can see, we got it good. It's a very fine line. We want to stay in between the lines, be very gentle, and brush those fine lines. As you can see, they're disappearing, and we don't have a large brush on this that we're taking a bunch of time and you have globs of paint on. This is very simple to be hitting, again, fine line scratches, okay? So, again, the fine line brush, once you're finished, trash them, okay? Now, let's use another example. Here is another example of some other brush sticks that you have. When I open these up, and we're going to take one. Now the differences that I would use this with would be something a little bit deeper than the fine line brushes. The fine line brushes, again, are for very fine cat scratch type of scratches. They don't do very long scratches. These are for fine little tiny things. This, once we soak it, this is going to act more like a pen. It's got a felt tip that acts more like a Sharpie and things of that. So if we're going around, I'd like to show an example of what I may use this on. So maybe a few of these. They're a little bit more spotty, okay? And just like a pen, you dip your tip in and use it just like a pen. Okay, now these may be for something a little bit deeper than the fine line scratches, okay? So, remember, again with these, they're disposable. We can trash these when we're done, okay? Moving on to the next one. These are a little bit larger, okay? Sometimes they're a little difficult to open. Okay. So, on these tips, as you can see, compared to the last one we showed an example of, they're much larger. These are going to be for much finer lines. These are for super fine lines. These are going to be for something a little bit bigger. So I'd like to show an example of that as well. If we're going to go over and hit larger scratches, larger scuffs, let's just say, for example, let's look at this right here. Now that is fine line. That is something that I can use either one of those tools for, but if it is something that you feel comfortable with using this, you can use this. Okay. How about an example of this? Let's look down here. Now, close to this rocker down here, you got a scratch that is actually 2 or 3 scratch marks together. So if I hit a fine line brush with that, it may be a little bit difficult. So maybe on something like this, I would use a larger brush. Okay. Now, how about something like this on the side? A larger brush, again, has a larger area that has gotten hit from here to here. So I would use this to hit these pieces here. Okay. Let's move on to the next. We also supply you with an artistic brush set. So this artistic brush set is going to give you multiple different choices. If we're going to go with a very large one for something maybe on a lower part of the bumper, larger scratches and things like that, I'm going to use a larger one. Just like every tool here, as you can see, dab sticks are going to be used for dabbing small little chips, circular chips that I use with the tips if they're larger. If it's very small, I'm going to rip off the tip and hit it like that. Fine line scratches, I'm going to use that fine line. A little bit bigger, I'm going to use that. And the larger brushes are included. So we supply you with the tools to choose which one works best for you, okay? So no matter what you're going to be doing, practice with it.